African black ostrich. The largest living bird on Earth and the foundation of the entire American ostrich farming industry. Adult males stand up to 9 feet tall and weigh over 300 pounds, with jet black body feathers offset by bright white wing plumes. This isn't a wild species, it's a domesticated breed developed specifically for farming. The breed was created in South Africa in the late 1800s by crossing several wild ostrich subspecies to produce a calmer, more manageable bird suited for captive breeding. The African black essentially did for ostriches what centuries of selective breeding did for cattle, took a wild, unpredictable animal and engineered a version humans could actually raise at scale. A single ostrich egg weighs about 3 pounds, the equivalent of roughly 24 chicken eggs, and takes 42 days to hatch. Despite the enormous size, the eggshell is strong enough that a 280-pound adult human can stand on one without breaking it. Farmers use this exact test to check shell quality before incubation. Ostrich meat is red meat but leaner than chicken and lower in cholesterol than beef, which has driven a steady niche market across American specialty butchers and high-end restaurants. A single bird can also produce over 14 square feet of leather, prized for its distinctive quill bump texture and used in luxury boots, bags, and wallets. A kick from an adult African black ostrich can break bones or worse. The legs alone generate enough force to kill a lion in the wild. American ostrich farms take the danger seriously, training handlers in specific approach techniques and never turning their back on a bird during breeding season. And the next breed comes from territory the African black was specifically bred to leave behind: red-necked ostrich, also called the North African ostrich. The wild ancestor subspecies that farmers deliberately avoided when building the domesticated African black. Distinguished by bright reddish-pink skin on the neck and thighs that becomes even more vivid during breeding season, this subspecies is significantly more aggressive and harder to handle in captivity. Wild populations range across the Sahel region of North Africa, from Senegal through Sudan, though numbers have collapsed dramatically due to hunting and habitat loss. Some regional populations have gone locally extinct entirely, and the subspecies as a whole is now considered a conservation concern despite the broader ostrich species remaining widespread globally. The temperament difference from farmed African blacks is dramatic and well documented. Red-necked ostriches retain strong wild defensive instincts, making them far more likely to charge, kick, or attack without the warning behaviors that farm-adapted birds typically display. Zoos and specialty breeders housing this subspecies use significantly more cautious handling protocols than standard ostrich farms require. Males develop the brightest neck coloring specifically during courtship, using the vivid red skin as a visual signal during elaborate mating dances that involve dropping to the ground and rhythmically swaying enormous black and white wings. The display is one of the more theatrical courtship rituals in the entire bird world, performed by an animal capable of killing a predator with a single kick. Conservation breeding programs maintain small populations, specifically to preserve genetic diversity, separate from the commercial African black lineage, since decades of selective farming have narrowed the domesticated gene pool considerably. The wild subspecies represents a genetic reservoir the industry may eventually need. And the next variety comes from the opposite end of the continent with an entirely different color signature. Somali ostrich, commonly called the blue-necked ostrich. Native to the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya, this population displays a distinctive blue-gray neck and thigh coloring instead of the pink or red seen in other ostrich populations, making it visually identifiable even from a significant distance. Scientists reclassified the Somali ostrich as a full separate species from the common ostrich in 2014, based on genetic and behavioral differences substantial enough to warrant the split. The reclassification means what was once considered just another ostrich subspecies is now recognized as its own distinct branch of the ostrich family tree entirely. Unlike other ostrich populations, Somali ostrich males don't develop the jet black body plumage typical of the species. Instead, males retain a grayish-brown coloring closer to what females of most ostrich subspecies display, making male and female Somali ostriches noticeably harder to distinguish from a distance than in other ostrich populations. The species inhabits arid and semi-arid grassland across politically unstable regions, which has severely limited scientific field research compared to other African megafauna. Much of what's documented about wild Somali ostrich behavior comes from limited survey data, rather than the long-term observational studies conducted on better-accessed populations elsewhere on the continent. Population trends remain poorly documented, though habitat loss and ongoing regional conflict are believed to be reducing numbers steadily. The species exists almost entirely outside the commercial ostrich farming industry, which relies overwhelmingly on the more tractable African black breed. And the next species swaps the African desert entirely for the Australian outback. Emu, the second largest living bird on Earth after the ostrich, and Australia's answer to the flightless giant bird category. Standing up to 6 feet tall with shaggy brown-gray feathers and a distinctive blue-tinted neck, the emu has become both a national symbol of Australia and a growing niche livestock species on American farms. Emus can sprint at 30 miles per hour and have a genuinely bizarre running gait. Their legs move in a way that lets them cover 9 feet in a single stride, while barely bouncing their body up and down, an efficiency that lets them travel enormous distances across the Australian outback, searching for food and water. Emu oil, rendered from the thick fat layer beneath the skin, has become a genuine commercial product across American health and beauty markets, marketed for skin conditions and joint pain. Whether the health claims hold up to rigorous scientific scrutiny remains debated, but the commercial demand has made emu oil one of the more valuable byproducts in small-scale emu farming operations. Unlike most birds, male emus handle almost all incubation and chick-rearing duties. After the female lays a clutch of dark green eggs, she typically leaves, and the male incubates for nearly 8 weeks without eating, drinking, or leaving the nest, surviving entirely on stored body fat while losing up to a third of his body weight. The Emu War of 1932 remains one of the strangest military engagements in recorded history. Australian soldiers armed with machine guns were deployed against emus destroying agricultural crops in Western Australia, and the birds won decisively, evading gunfire through sheer numbers, speed, and unpredictable movement until the military campaign was abandoned. And the next species is the South American bird people constantly mistake for a small ostrich, greater rhea. Native to the grasslands of Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, this large, flightless bird gets mistaken for a small ostrich constantly, despite belonging to an entirely separate family that evolved independently on a different continent. The confusion is understandable: grayish-brown body, long legs, long neck, standing nearly 5 feet tall. The most important physical difference is on the feet. Ostriches have only 2 toes on each foot, an adaptation for running speed. Rheas have 3 toes, more similar to the foot structure of emus and cassowaries. That single anatomical detail is often how wildlife biologists identify which flightless bird family they're actually looking at when photographs get mislabeled online. Male rheas practice extreme polygamy combined with extreme parental dedication. A dominant male mates with multiple females who all lay their eggs in a single communal nest that can hold over 50 eggs from different mothers, and then the male alone incubates the entire mass and raises every resulting chick without any help from the females at all. Charles Darwin nearly ate the type specimen of a related rhea species before realizing what he'd found. During the Beagle voyage, Darwin's crew had already begun cooking a rhea for dinner in Patagonia before Darwin recognized it as a distinct, previously undocumented species, salvaged the remaining parts, and shipped them back to England. The bird now carries his name as Darwin's rhea. Small-scale rhea farming exists in the United States, primarily for meat, leather, and oil production similar to ostrich and emu operations, though the industry remains considerably smaller than either. The bird that isn't technically an ostrich fills a nearly identical ecological and commercial role on a completely different continent. And the next species is Darwin's own namesake, standing at the smaller end of this list. Lesser rhea, officially named Darwin's rhea after the naturalist who documented it. Noticeably smaller than its greater rhea cousin, standing around 3 feet tall with paler, more mottled feathering and white-tipped feathers that give it a frosted appearance, the greater rhea lacks entirely. This species lives at genuinely extreme elevation. Populations inhabit the high-altitude Andean plateaus and Patagonian steppe across Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, and Peru, surviving at elevations exceeding 13,000 feet in some regions. Thin air, intense UV exposure, and dramatic temperature swings that would challenge most large flightless birds. 3 recognized subspecies occupy different portions of the range, each showing slight adaptations to local conditions. The puna rhea, inhabiting the highest Andean plateaus, differs measurably from populations found in lower Patagonian grassland, demonstrating how a single species diversified to handle dramatically different elevation zones within a relatively compact geographic range. Conservation status varies significantly by subspecies and region. Some Darwin's rhea populations remain relatively stable within protected Patagonian reserves, while others face genuine pressure from hunting and habitat conversion to agriculture, particularly in areas outside formal conservation zones. Indigenous communities across the Andean range have hunted Darwin's rhea sustainably for centuries, using feathers, meat, and eggs as part of traditional subsistence practices, predating European contact by thousands of years. The smallest bird on this list survives at the highest, harshest elevations any flightless bird on Earth has adapted to call home. And the final species on this list isn't farmed at all. It's the one flightless bird most farmers actively avoid, cassowary, widely documented as the most dangerous bird on Earth. Native to the tropical rainforests of New Guinea and northern Australia, this species combines a body built like a dinosaur with a dagger-like inner claw capable of delivering fatal injuries to humans, dogs, and even large predators. The inner toe claw grows up to 5 inches long and functions like a blade rather than a typical bird talon. Cassowaries kick forward with tremendous force, and documented attacks on humans have resulted in severe lacerations, punctured organs, and confirmed fatalities. The Guinness World Records officially lists the cassowary as the world's most dangerous bird for this exact reason. The tall bony casque on top of the head remains scientifically debated. Theories range from a tool for pushing through dense rainforest undergrowth, to a signal of dominance and age to other cassowaries, to a resonating chamber that amplifies the extremely low-frequency booming calls the species produces. Sounds so deep, they sit near the bottom edge of human hearing. Despite the danger, cassowaries are ecologically irreplaceable in their native rainforest habitat. The species swallows fruit whole and disperses seeds from over 70 plant species across enormous territories, including some plants whose seeds germinate only after passing through a cassowary's digestive system. Losing the cassowary would functionally break the reproductive cycle of specific rainforest trees entirely dependent on it. A small number of specialty exotic bird keepers in the United States legally raise cassowaries under strict permit requirements, but the practice remains rare and heavily regulated given the documented human injury risk. From the domesticated African black built for the farm to this genuinely lethal rainforest giant, the flightless bird family spans from livestock to one of the most dangerous animals a person can encounter in the wild, all descended from ancestors that gave up flight millions of years before humans existed to farm, fear, or study any of them. 2 toes versus 3 toes. The single detail that separates these birds at a glance is hiding in plain sight on the ground. Ostriches have only 2 toes on each foot, the fewest of any living bird. An adaptation stripped down purely for speed, letting them hit nearly 45 miles per hour across open savanna. Every other flightless giant on this list, from the rhea to the emu to the cassowary, kept 3. That one anatomical difference is part of how scientists confirm these birds evolved independently on separate continents, rather than descending from a single shared ancestor that later spread around the world.